think you can run this, and then you can run this top sight, and then you can run this canted, and then you can have all of the sights, all of the funny sights. So hello gamers and welcome back to another BattleBit Remastered video. So attachments in BattleBit are obviously, they're gonna make or break your gun. Some of the guns in this game with attachments literally kill people in less hits than if you weren't running attachments on them. So of course they're going to be very, very good if you run the attachments. But what are the good attachments? Well, that's what we're gonna talk about in this video. And yeah, please subscribe. Only like 12% of people watching my channel are subscribed. So first thing we need to talk about is your sight. So if your gun starts with a sight, yeah, you can actually click on that and then go to none to use the irons. But let's be real, like these irons are great, but most of the iron sights in this game are not very good. So just don't even use them. And then the first one you're gonna get is either the red dot or the reflex sight. Now the reflex is sometimes the 5 kill one and the red dot is sometimes the 5 kill one. But if one of them is 5 kills, the other one will be 35 kills. And you know, these are pretty good. And you got to keep in mind that this is talking about the automatic guns. We'll talk about some of the scopes and stuff later. That was the red dot. Here is the reflex sight. Not as good, in my opinion. Let's go through these in the list that they are in the shooting range, which is different from in-game, but it doesn't really matter. You guys will get the idea. So this is the aim comp. I really like this one, but there is one that's kind of the same thing, but better. It gives you a little dot and a little bit of tint to your scope, as you can see, but it's only a little bit of grayish, kind of. It's almost like a little bit red or purple, but I can't really tell. The holo sight is pretty nice. There's a different holo sight that people kind of like more. This one's got a little bit of green tint to it, and as you can see, it has a little bit of a difficult reticle to see, in my opinion. I don't really like this one that much. I just stick to the red dot. But next one is the Cobra. Now the Cobra, I don't know anyone who uses this one. Now in other games, I'm not a huge fan of the Cobra, but in this game especially, I don't know. Not the best sight in the game in my opinion, but it's all right. This is one I'm a huge fan of, which is the Strike Fire. Now the reticle is a little bit difficult to see, but in game it's not too bad. It's just like this map in particular is hard to see it. But this one, it feels really good. I don't know. Definitely try this one out if you haven't. Like all short-range sights, it doesn't have any zoom to it, which is awesome. This one is the Razor, and some people like this. I'm not a huge fan of it personally. It's kind of just like another version of the EOTechs, and as you can see, because the bars are so wide on it, if you're doing flicks and stuff, you literally can't see what you're aiming at, and you can't do this with other sights in the game. Even ones like the aim comp, as you can see, they don't do that at all. I don't know why the Razor does that, and basically nothing else does that. It needs to be fixed, but it looks cool. It's just terrible in game. Then of course we have the funny sight. Now this thing is terrible. Don't use it, but it's a meme sight, so obviously it's gonna be bad, but it's bad. Just don't use it. But you can run a top sight on it, which is yeah, I don't know what to add to this. Yeah, it does that. I don't know what to say, dude. Then last up we have the, what's it called again? HS401G5. Now I just call this the Gen 5 sight or the G5 sight. And my main assault rifle right now for a while has been the SG550. And as you can see, this has like none of that annoying stuff from the Razor. And it also has a really nice red dot. And it's way easier to use the red dot than Strike Fire, because the Strike Fire has a dot and then a little bit of like a circle around it. And this is just the dot. And it makes guns really nice. I only use it on the SG550, but the SG550 is like my main gun right now. I have over 500 kills on it, and I've been using it for the past few days quite a bit. I 100% would recommend you try this one out. I think it's great. But now medium range scopes, we have the ACOG. Now the ACOG is pretty good, you know. It has, I think, a 4x zoom, which is definitely on the higher side. It's all right for DMRs. I don't even really like it for DMRs myself. And there's nothing like objectively wrong with it, but I just kind of prefer a dot. Then we have the M125. Now there's going to be a lot of sights that are kind of like this one. And this one is one of my least favorites. I think it looks really not great when you're aiming in. Like, it's not objectively bad, but ACOG is cool looking. This one, not so much. Then we have the Prisma. Now the Prisma is really good for sniping. It's not the best for autos, of course, but this is it. I really like this one, definitely. It's 100% worth using. Then we have the only medium range scope that you should be running on your automatics, which is the Slip, which is a 2x. Now 2x zoom is still pretty controllable for recoil, but also you can go for some ranges that you wouldn't really be able to go for with a 1x sight. So 2x zoom is pretty good, not nearly as annoying to use on an auto as a 4x. But next up we have the Flir. Now this is a sight that, yes, it has a thermal mode. Now, thermal mode obviously doesn't work on these dummies here, but in game, it's not too bad. So if you press caps lock, you can change to normal, and normal will make the crosshair bigger, which is kind of annoying, but it will remove the low frame rate and it will turn off your thermal. And your thermal, as you can see there, has a battery. And if you have the thermal on, it goes down, but then it charges back up like a flashlight in Half-Life 1. It has some pretty massive downsides to a lot of stats. As you can see there, worse first shot kick, worse control, worse aiming speed, worse running speed, and worse most draw speed. Personally, not a big fan of this one, but it is a thermal, so there's that. Then we have the Echo Sight, and as you can see, it looks bad too. I don't know. It looks better with like a top sight on it, I guess, but also you can't run a top sight on it. I wish you could run a top sight on this one. Like, why not? I don't know. Duct tape it to the top, dude. And as you can see, it's all right, you know. Then we have the TRIX or TR1X or whatever. It's just called a Trix sight by most people. And this is basically the go-to sniper scope. Now, it has some cool like color distortion to it, but other than that, the reticle is great for hitting headshots on enemies because it's just so easy to see with it at medium ranges. Then we have the last one, the R33. I don't know, man. This is the second one you get on most DMRs, and it's pretty decent. Probably better than the ACOG for me, so I use it on my DMRs when I have low kills, which is all my DMRs, because I'll max those DMRs out when they make them good, okay? And of course, let's go over to some of the long-range sights. And here we have the default, which is the 6x scope. Something you should keep in mind is actually you shouldn't be running any of the long-range scopes unless you really, really need them for whatever reason, but the medium-range scopes do not show any scope glint. Which means people can't see you, basically. So yeah, don't use them. Otherwise, people will be able to shoot you through bushes and stuff because they'll see that glint. And the glint right now is really broken. It's so easy to see it over range and stuff. Then we have the 8x, which in most games, I really like how it looks. But in this game, the dust covers just kind of like cover the gun, so it's kind of annoying. Kind of a better reticle as well, but once you get a medium range, you're not going to be using it at all. But then we have the 15 times zoom, which is a scope with 15 times zoom. Then we have the 20 times, and now this is going to sound pretty crazy, but this is a scope with a 20 times zoom. Now this is the PTR 40 Hunter. Now this is a scope with a 40 times zoom. Now the 40 times is pretty cool. It's a lot of zoom. It is a lot of zoom. So yeah, don't use it. Don't use any of them, really. Like, if you really need to run this on your sniper rifle, you can. But yeah, so next up we have the Canteds, and we'll talk about top sights in just a second. But yeah, Canteds first. So use a Canted or top sight, scope in, and use your scroll wheel. And as you can see, this is the Canted iron sight. Now you'd think that the Canted iron sight would be the iron sight of the gun, but it's actually just any iron sight. It's just the same iron sight for every gun. Most guns don't have this kind of decent iron sight. Obviously, you're not really going to want to use it, because if you're going to use any of the Canteds, you should be using just a red dot, because the iron sights are not as good as red dots. I don't know what to tell you. And they all have the exact same downside, which is kind of annoying, which is only 1% control and 1% draw speed. That won't actually change any of your gun stats in a noticeable way at all, so don't worry too much. And we have probably everybody's favorite for people who run Canteds. Personally, I just run like a sight that does everything, but this is the Canted red dot. This one is not too bad. Now the red dot is really difficult to see on this map, but normally it's not too bad to see, and very honestly, like, it's a better sight than many of the sights already in the game. Now the annoying thing is leaning feels extra weird, like extra weird, because you have normal leaning, and then like you're leaning, but then you're leaning the gun too, so then it like unleans. I don't know, it's really, and then you like extra lean over here. It just feels super weird. But if you run a Canted, run this. This is going to be the #1 Canted sight for sure. And you have a Canted funny sight. It's like the other one, but Canted. Then you have the Canted Holo, which has this reticle, but it's like this. Now this one is kind of nice because, like, on some maps, like this one for example, it's a little bit easier to see it, but overall I prefer a dot because it's less obstructive to your vision of an enemy player. But as you can see, it's a great sight as well. Moving on to top sights, you're gonna need to run a medium range optic, and it depends on the medium range optic. The best one for it is probably slip, because yeah, you can run it on a slip, which is really cool, and get probably the best experience from a full auto assault rifle, because you can run it in close range and then you can run it in medium range as well. This is the red dot. It's pretty good, not gonna lie. It's pretty good. And then you have the red dot top sight. Now the red dot top sight, in my opinion, it's a little bit weird because it has kind of the same like bars as the regular red dot, but a little bit wider and a little bit like closer to your red dot. And it's very much up to you, but I kind of prefer the Delta one. But yeah, it's very much up to you. I don't really know which one is better. They're both about the same. I feel like they could change them a little bit more, because here's one of them and there's the other one, kind of similar looking. Then we have the C red dot top, which I've never used personally. I think it looks bad. It just looks bad. I don't know what the advantage of it is. Looks bad, honestly. Like, I don't know what to tell you, man. And then of course you have the funny sight for the top sight, which actually just reminded me, I think you can run this, and then you can run this top sight, and then you can run this Canted, and then you can have all of the sights, all of the funny sights. But now we're finally off of the side attachments. Man, this video is going to be so long. But yeah, we're finally onto the side rails. Now, these are weird, not going to lie. So first off, you have the flashlight, and my key for them is J, and this is the first flashlight. It's a flashlight. I don't know what to add, honestly. Like, it's just a flashlight. It has small negatives that aren't that much, so it doesn't really matter. Same with the rangefinder, and of course the rangefinder shows you your range, and this is pretty cool. Obviously, that's the best for the sniper rifles, but you can see when stuff is really far away. That's pretty cool. Then you have the red and the green laser. This is the red laser. It helps you with aiming a little bit. And with the green laser, I personally use green, and you can use red if you want to. It just is up to personal preference, but yeah, I use green on basically all of my guns that aren't the sniper rifles, and then I use rangefinder on those. And you have the tactical. It's got this like blue tint to it, but if you aim down sights, it turns off the flashlight, which is honestly really cool. Not really necessary at all. Like, you don't really need it, but it's cool. Then you have probably the bad flashlight, which is the searchlight. Now, this is like the flashlight, but a massive beam. The flashlights are not great because at night, yeah, you can see better, but then you may as well just run night vision, and also people can see them. So you can blind people with flashlights, but at the same time, I haven't played that much night maps, and most people don't anyway. And even then, I was never blinded by anybody with a flashlight. It was mostly just flares that did that. But yeah, but now we're onto the barrels. Now, first off, we have the basic barrel, which will slightly reduce your bloom, but make your muzzle flash a little bit larger. Now, I do recommend this one 100% when you first start. It's like a tiny upgrade to your gun, but it does like basically nothing. Then you have the compensator. Now, this will reduce your horizontal and vertical recoil by a little bit and make your muzzle flash a little bit smaller, but will make your bloom higher. Now, honestly, on an automatic gun, it's not going to be too bad to be running this. It'll basically just make your gun have a little bit of inaccuracy to it, a little bit more than normal. Like the FAMAS here, if you're looking closely, you can tell that the bullets are actually moving to the left and the right of where I'm aiming. And it's honestly pretty noticeable, and that makes the FAMAS even worse over range, so just do keep that in mind when you're running these. But yeah, next up we have the heavy and long barrel, and normally these will be really late on the list, but the heavy barrel gives you worse recoil, both vertical and horizontal, and 50% more first shot kick. So on your first shot, you will be much higher recoil, but will improve your accuracy and your velocity and your damage. It'll also make your sound spread higher, so your gun will be like easier to hear over range, as well as your muzzle flash will be larger, and the gun will control and walk a little bit slower. But this one is cool. It gives you more damage, but it's the bad one, to be honest. It's just the bad one. As you can see, first shot kick is massive. Like, your first shot has 50% more kick than your other shots, which is crazy. Don't use this one because you get the long barrel usually before it, and it's better. The long barrel gives you better horizontal recoil, but much worse vertical recoil, a tiny bit more first shot kick, but it's only 1% more, better velocity and accuracy as before, and a little bit worse muzzle flash. But as you can see here, the long barrel has so many more advantages. This is the heavy barrel compared. The long barrel is just the better one, to be honest with you. I 100% recommend the long barrel, especially on guns like the FAMAS. It just depends on what you want from your gun, but this is the one that can improve your hits to kill. Yes, the heavy barrel can do it too, but the heavy barrel is just the bad version of it. I don't know, just don't use it. And next up, we have the Muzzle Break. Don't use this. I don't know why you would. It will give you better sound spread by a tiny bit, a lot better muzzle flash, but it's essentially a bad version of the flash hider attachment. It barely reduces your horizontal recoil, but increases your vertical by a ton, reduces accuracy, and does nothing. It's just bad. Then we have the tactical barrel, and this is considered the best barrel in the whole game. In my opinion, yeah, it kind of is. It gives you substantially better vertical recoil, a little bit better horizontal recoil, a little bit increased first shot kick though, a tiny bit less accuracy, and a tiny bit more sound spread, but less muzzle flash. And honestly, it's just better recoil. It's just better. It makes your gun kick up a lot less, and yeah, it can really improve some of the guns in this game. And if you don't already use this one, I recommend you do. Now, it just depends on the gun. Some guns have a ton of horizontal recoil and don't need vertical recoil control as much, so don't really use this one on them because there's other barrels for it. But yeah, it's definitely worth it to run this if you don't want to run long barrel. But next up, we have the flash hider. Now, the flash hider is one of my favorite attachments in the whole game. You get way better muzzle flash, of course, and better accuracy, but the recoil changes are massive. You get way less horizontal recoil, but way higher vertical. So your gun kicks up more, but kicks side to side less. Now, if a gun has a lot of side to side, this is going to fix it. But of course, a gun like the FAMAS, it's not going to really need that. Take, for example, the AK-15. Now, right now, it's going left and right quite a bit. However, when you put on a flash hider, you're going to notice now that this gun is going to go basically straight up. And yes, it's going to go up a little bit faster, but you pull that down, the gun is going to be so much more accurate than, for example, if you were to run this setup. And as you can see, it's just kicking around a little bit more and making the gun a little bit less accurate than just pulling down and using a flash hider. So a flash hider is definitely like top 5 barrels in this game. Super, super good. But now we have the OG N308. This is definitely an underrated barrel. It gives you better vertical and better horizontal recoil with worse accuracy and running speed. So basically a better version of the Compensator. The reason that this one isn't that used is because if you want vertical, you use tactical, and if you want horizontal, use flash hider. But this one is definitely a better middle ground. I don't use this one, but definitely if you have a gun where you're just like, I don't know which one I want better, horizontal or vertical recoil, use this. It'll do both. It's like a jack of all trades one, basically. But then we have the VAM barrel. Now the VAM barrel is very interesting because it's like this SDN barrel, but better. We'll talk about the SDN first. So the SDN barrel gives you better horizontal recoil by a lot, better velocity, and better accuracy, but it will lower your damage, which is annoying. Like, you don't want worse damage, you know what I mean? And this can ruin some guns. Like the Groza, it ruins the Groza. But if you don't really care for your damage, I guess you could run it. It's just like, you get better velocity, but come on. A little bit more velocity for worse damage. But then we have the VAM barrel. Now the VAM barrel will give you much different stats. It has actually no effect on your horizontal recoil, but gives you better vertical recoil and more velocity. So it's like an SDN barrel, but it doesn't have as good effects for your accuracy or your recoil, but it doesn't lower your damage. So that's why the VAM barrel is the preferred barrel of many people. This is a barrel that's really not too bad if you want lower bullet drop. Now, it's not going to have any other really great effects. Like, it will lower your vertical recoil by a decent amount, so it's not going to be too bad, but it's not the best barrel in the game. But the main thing it does that's really good is it gives you more bullet velocity. So if you have a gun that's like kind of annoying bullet velocity, this will have a decent effect on it. But then you have the NT556. Now, this is one that's pretty interesting. It will give you lower accuracy, but it will give you better vertical and horizontal recoil by a small amount and better velocity. So this one is actually pretty good. It's kind of a direct upgrade to the SDN, but its recoil benefits are not massive. It's only 0.03 and 0.04. It really just depends on the recoil control you want, but those are the 3 velocity ones that aren't long or heavy barrel or Ranger, which we'll get into Ranger later. But next up, we have the suppressor attachments. Now, these are crazy because in this game, they don't affect your damage or your range or your velocity even, but they will have massive effects on recoil. The first one is the long suppressor, which does not really affect your horizontal recoil, but increases your first shot kick and your vertical recoil by a ton. But your gun is very quiet with this, but the gun goes up a little bit more. On the Scar, it's not too bad to run this. It's really just like a ton of horizontal on the Scar, so you could run this on many guns in this game if they don't really need that vertical recoil control. And this one is definitely an overall more single downside attachment because it's only really the vertical recoil that's the downside of it. Then we have the more popular one, which is the short suppressor. Now this increases your vertical by a little bit and your horizontal by quite a bit, and your first shot kick, but not as much as the long suppressor. If you look at the stats when compared between the two, the long suppressor will have way better horizontal but way worse vertical. So it's really up to you which one you want. Now on this one, it's kind of going to be annoying, but really not too bad either. The main thing here is that this one has less first shot kick and more overall recoil but less vertical recoil. So I'm not going to say which one is better. It's really up to you and it depends on the gun as well. Personally, I feel like I run the shortened one more, but that's just me. I think it's really up to the player. Then we have the sniper rifle Ranger barrel. Now the Ranger barrel is a massive upside, massive downside attachment. It gives you a lot of extra damage. As you can see, 6.5, giving you the ability to one-hit kill limb at very far ranges on many sniper rifles, which is why it's so good. The long barrel can also do this, but it doesn't really do it as often. The downsides of this one is increased vertical recoil, increased horizontal recoil, and doubled first shot kick. But of course, the upsides are control, damage, and way better velocity as well. And yeah, this is going to be the best barrel on the snipers, in my opinion. Now, you do get higher recoil, but in my opinion, it doesn't really matter that much. I like to aim out, even though I have the E-bolt on my regular loadout with this gun. But yeah, if you really want to, you can run the long barrel instead to have a little bit less downside to first shot kick and things like that, but I prefer Ranger barrel. But yeah, gamers, I've been recording for a long time, almost an hour now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this into 2 parts, and next time I'll talk about the grip attachments as well as the magazine attachments or ammo attachments. That video will probably come out tomorrow or the next day. It'll come out really soon. So if you guys found this video helpful and you want to see more guides, make sure to subscribe to my channel. But yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow or whenever that video comes out for the second part of this video. But yeah, have a nice day.